Aurora. I shake my father awake. He stirs and opens his eyes. What is it, Jiva? This is my real name. Look. I point outside. He leans across me, presses his face to the small airplane plastic oval. The sky shudders in colored waves. It's beautiful, he whispers, like a rainbow coming apart. Like a sari unwound. Peaceful. His words brush the window. She would have loved this. He grips the paper-wrapped box balanced on his left knee. What remains of she? We are bringing Mata home. In a box, Bapu holds under his arm an urn, brass. He held it on his lap all the way from Elsinore to Winnipeg. 1.5 hours on the bus, on his lap in the taxi. He can't bear to be away from her. This is my wife, he explains to airport security. Be careful with her. Her name is Leela. The blonde man in uniform hikes up his blue pants. I don't care if her name is Sally Come-Lately. They x-ray her anyway. Someone shakes the box. Can't be too careful these days. My father stares angrily but says nothing. His body's in pain as if it's its own heart that they're tossing around. This is my wife, he pleads with the flight attendant. I understand, sir, she says, but for everyone's safety. He slides the box under the seat for takeoff. I'm sorry, he whispers to my mother. You should never be at my feet. Blame. Bapu is heavy with grief and remorse. Blame, too. Where were you? Why did you leave your mother alone, Jiva? What were you doing that was more important than her? I am not her caretaker, I shouted before running out of the house into the fields. My father claims Mata lost heart while waiting for me. What was she playing? The Bach that I loved? Schubert? No, it must have been Beethoven. And where was I? Why didn't I rush home like every other afternoon? Because I had something to do. I had to find out if my suspicions were right. The piano. My father bought the piano when things got bad. They're cheap in the country. Every old farmhouse has one. Always a piano for sale somewhere on the prairies. $200 and it's yours. Mata insisted to be carried up the stairs to the yellow wallpapered bedroom on the 2nd floor. The railing and a piece of a wall had to be removed to make it fit. I want it in a room with a door, my mother insisted. It helped for a while. Instead of finding Mata crying in the kitchen every afternoon, I came home to music. The 2nd floor window propped open, a waltz carried on the wind. When she wasn't playing, she hummed. My father and I exchanged smiles. Maybe this would help. Maybe she'd forget the loneliness, forget about going home. But over the years, the music got louder. It was angry, weeping, beautiful, and sad. I was frightened and thrilled at the same time. She played with such passion that I couldn't believe it was my mother. This small, quiet woman who sat at dinner with her hands folded like an old-fashioned schoolgirl, refusing food, eyes staring ahead, always open. Even her weeping was controlled, but on the keyboard, she was possessed. Above the kitchen, the floorboards groaned with music. Some days she even forgot and called me Jiva. The day I heard Bapu weep at my mother's declaration, I knew things wouldn't get better. There won't be another child, Amar, she said in English. I have nothing to feed him. She put her hand on her breast to show him it was flat. My mother never spoke Punjabi again. Hindi became the language of her demise. My parents had the most romantic love story, like Romeo and Juliet. Warring families, Montagues and Capulets, Karanas and Dravidis, plotting against each other, discouraging the young lovers. Mata told me my father looked like a warrior, tall and regal, a turban of molten bronze. And my father, when pressed to remember, says my mother glowed as if her body was the only source of light in the hall. All shadows disappeared. Then the rest of the world followed. There was only her, Leela, meaning play. They meet at a wedding. A good omen, according to my Hindu mother, auspicious. She is hiding behind a pillar ribboned with green vines, jasmine blossoms fill the hall with honey sweetness. No, it was the scent of your mother, Bapu insists. His turban ought to have warned her away. The families would never allow it. A marriage between a Sikh and a Hindu Brahmin would be full of conflicts. But my mother is reckless. She rearranges her sari, silk the color of a sunset. She steps from behind the column and dares to look my father straight in the eye. From that moment on, he is lost. Drowned, Mata had claimed. Saved, Bapu says. Or was it doomed? The courtship. For 2 months, Leela is not allowed to leave the house unaccompanied. Her mother warns, "You will be dead to me if you marry a Sikh." In my father's house, his mother doesn't talk to him for 6 weeks. Actually, I enjoyed the quiet, he says. Bapu's father, my grandfather, is not silent. He lectures that a Sikh's duty is to God. His son's lust for the Hindu Brahmin girl will bring about my father's spiritual downfall. He quotes the poet Bulleh Shah, "Be content with thy circumstances. Do not be blinded by glamour. Fix thine attention on the seed. Ignore the branches, leaves, and fruit. That which comes and goes is transient. The wise do not become attached to it." My father's not moved. God is in his love for Leela. My grandfather tries to scare my father. My mother is an example of Maya, the world of illusion, not the true world of God. A Sikh attached to Maya cannot escape the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Amar, he says, you will be bound to the wheel of existences. But the couple will not relent. They choose to believe that their parents' condemnation is for show. To save face, both families must express their displeasure at the union. 3 months later, there is a wedding. Leela holding his gaze, my father rendered blind. Amar means immortal. What are you writing? A family history, I say to my father. Ah, Bapu says, looking down at the box on his lap. He shifts in the narrow airplane seat, moving my mother so she rests on his chest. He closes his eyes and goes back to sleep. The sky outside the window blackens like soot, a nightmare erasing the colors of the wind. We begin in Elsinore, 75 miles southwest of Winnipeg, a prairie town where sunflowers grow in neat, tall rows. The sun drags the yellow faces from east to west, the faithful adoration of the masses. There are 1,472 Christian-like souls living in this oddly named town. A Danish settler's choice, or a literary scholar who saw a castle in the clouds. My friend Helen thinks a spinster English teacher crafted the lofty name and then went slowly mad with small-town boredom and the lack of marriageable men. There are 3 pagans in this community. That's us. We rent an old farmhouse near the cemetery, just until we can buy our own piece of land, Leela, my father says. Bapu runs Jack's Mechanic Shop, a lease-to-own deal negotiated with Jack's widow, Lucy, just before she moved to Florida. My father's offer for the shop was the only one. Mata's job is to take care of the home, her husband, a yard full of chickens, and 2 goats, and me. Fate. A man steps on the moon at the exact moment I am born. July 20th, 1969, 9:56 p.m. Central Standard Time. When my mother learns this, she puts her lips against my cheek and says, "Auspicious." I cry as if the man is walking over me instead of the gray ash of Earth's satellite. "You will fly," Mata whispers. My eyes are gelled, closed like a kitten's. Birthday. I arrive at the Brandon Hospital, glistening like the moon on a summer's night. Bapu says that I am so white I must be a changeling, a switch in the womb, a fairy child, a delusion. But Mata says, "Wait, Amar, it's just chalk dusting her skin, the chalk from her story written across the sky. The goddess Maya's hand is telling her future." Rubbish, Bapu says. There is only one God. They are both surprised to hear Amar say this. He has always been tolerant of Leela's Hindu beliefs, but today they hear the voice of his father. "Let me clean her," says the red-headed nurse. She wipes away the sticky vernix, the chalk dust, the story written in the clouds, and then I take my proper color. The nurse holds me up for inspection. Bapu nods his approval. I am dark. Dark as Manitoban soil, the earth he wants to own. On the 11th day, let's name her Neil, after the astronaut. You're delirious, Leela. What about Luna? No, my daughter will not have a crazy name. Then let's give her a Canadian Indian name, strong arm swinging at moon. Are you mad, Leela? Did your brain fall out with the baby? Listen, wife, I have chosen a name. What? Jiva. No, Amar. It's a boy's name. It's a name for girls as well. I will not name my daughter after your father. We'll talk about it later, Leela, when you're back to normal. We'll talk about it now, Amar. The child should have a beautiful name. It is beautiful. It is a Sikh name, and it will offend my goddess. Leela, there is only one God. With the utterance of these words a second time, my parents' world tilts on its axis. The horizon moves. Somewhere a river floods over a field. Islands are forming, drifting. Maya. I will call her Maya, my mother whispers. It is her destiny. My father goes out the back door, his black eyes red with anger. Maya, he spits. Goddess of illusion, he spits. Not reality. He remembers what his father said. The world is a dream. Any moment it may pass away. Thou hast built a house of sand. How can it endure? All this is Maya. I should have listened and insisted you become a Sikh, Leela, or never married you at all. That was your destiny. Name. My birth certificate reads Jiva. It means soul in Sanskrit. But my mother privately called me Maya. Illusion. Change. From Sanskrit too. The truth of it, what my two names really mean, is that I was born into a division that began long before me.